Naima clutches her newborn daughter, sweat dripping from her brow as the cries of the infant echo through the hut. The air outside is thick with whispers, the villagers peering cautiously through the cracks in the woven walls. The blood moon hangs heavily in the sky, its crimson glow casting an eerie light over Nyandala. Mama Osi, the village elder, stands solemnly near the fire, her gnarled hands gripping a staff adorned with ancient carvings. Her eyes, clouded with wisdom and fear, scan the child's face. She is touched by the spirits, one of the midwives murmurs, backing away. The prophecy. Naima tightens her hold on the tiny bundle, her heart hammering. She knows what they are thinking. A child born under the blood moon is said to be marked by fate, destined to bring either great fortune or calamity. Some believe such children are cursed, a harbinger of suffering. The chief, Abadil, steps forward, his expression unreadable. He is a man of reason, but even he cannot ignore the ancient words passed down through generations. A child of the blood moon will rise in darkness or light, he says, his voice steady but heavy with uncertainty. Outside the hut, the village is divided. Some whisper that the child must be cast out before misfortune befalls them all. Others, though hesitant, believe the spirits would not bring a life into this world without purpose. Naima, exhausted but resolute, refuses to let them take her daughter. She is mine, she says, her voice hoarse yet firm. No harm will come to her. Mama Osi watches the mother and child for a long moment before turning toward the villagers. The spirits will decide her path, she declares, raising her staff. We will not cast her out, but we will watch. If darkness takes her, we must be ready. The decision is made. Zubaida will be allowed to stay, but suspicion will follow her every step. As the villagers slowly disperse, their eyes linger on the hut where the child of the blood moon has taken her first breath. The night is still thick with tension, and though the cries of the baby have quieted, the unspoken fear remains. Abadil exchanges a glance with Mama Osi. I pray we have not sealed our own fate. Mama Osi's face is grim as she gazes at the moon. Fate is never sealed. It is only waiting to be written. From the moment Zubaida could walk, the village of Nyandala felt her presence like the shifting of the wind, unpredictable and undeniable. Some days, the crops in the fields grew taller and greener than ever before, yielding harvests so abundant that the elders shook their heads in awe. But on other days, the sky darkened without warning, and rains poured so heavily that they drowned the fields, leaving the farmers cursing under their breath. She is not natural, some muttered when they thought no one was listening. Naima, torn between love and fear, could not bring herself to fully embrace her daughter. She had fought to keep Zubaida, had sworn to protect her from the harsh whispers of the village, yet doubt festered in her heart. Each time her daughter's eyes caught the light in an unusual way, each time the wind shifted when she cried, Naima wondered if the elders had been right to fear her birth. Children did not play with Zubaida. The few who did were quickly pulled away by frightened mothers. She spent her days by the river, speaking to the wind, listening to the trees. Mama Osi, the only one who did not treat her like an outcast, would often sit with her under the great baobab tree, watching in silence. One evening, a storm arrived with unnatural force. It came with no warning. One moment, the sky was clear, and the next, it was swallowed by dark clouds. The winds roared through the village, tearing roofs from homes, and before anyone could react, a bolt of lightning struck the center of the village, splitting a great totem pole in two. The villagers scrambled for safety, crying out in terror. When the storm finally passed, they emerged to assess the damage. Silence hung over the ruins of the village square. Then, slowly, all eyes turned to Zubaida. She brought this upon us, a voice hissed. She was angry when we refused to let her join the festival, another whispered. Naima stepped forward, shielding her daughter, but even she could not ignore the uneasy feeling twisting in her chest. The fear in the villagers' eyes was turning into something darker, something more dangerous. A meeting was called that night. The council gathered in the chief's hut, the firelight flickering against their grim faces. Mama Osi sat among them, her expression unreadable as the villagers pleaded their case. She is a danger to us all. The spirits are punishing us for keeping her. She must go before she brings ruin to Nyandala. Mama Osi tapped her staff against the ground, silencing the voices. If she is abandoned, fate will still find her, she warned. Chief Abadil's face was carved with exhaustion. He had long fought against his people's superstitions, but even he could not deny the pattern of strange occurrences. The storm had been the final push. He rose from his seat and looked toward Naima, whose face was streaked with silent tears. She must be taken away, he declared. A heavy silence settled over the hut, followed by murmurs of agreement. The decision had been made. Outside, Zubaida sat alone, staring up at the sky. She did not yet know of the council's decision, but deep in her heart, she felt the shift in the air, the way the stars seemed farther away than before. Something was coming, and for the first time in her young life, she was truly afraid. The night was moonless when they came for her. Shadows moved silently through the village, their faces hidden behind carved wooden masks. Zubaida was asleep when rough hands pulled her from her mat, muffling her cries before she could wake the others. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling as she recognized some of them, men who had once shared meals with her mother, warriors who had once taught her to carve little animals from wood. But they did not speak. Their fear was greater than their guilt. Naima did not come to stop them. Zubaida's heart pounded as they led her through the thick jungle, deeper than she had ever been allowed to go. The trees loomed like silent watchers, their twisted branches forming eerie shapes against the night sky. Owls hooted in the distance, and the rustling of unseen creatures sent shivers down her spine. When they reached a clearing, the warriors stopped. One of them, the tallest, stepped forward. "Do not return," he said, his voice hollow behind the mask. "The spirits have claimed you." Tears welled in Zubaida's eyes. "I don't want to be here," she pleaded. "I want to go home." The warriors turned away. Not one of them looked back as they disappeared into the darkness, leaving her alone. For a moment, silence swallowed the clearing. Then, the jungle came alive. Strange whispers floated through the trees, voices speaking in tongues she did not understand. The ground beneath her felt wrong, as if it pulsed with an unseen heartbeat. Something moved in the shadows, many things, watching, waiting. She stumbled backward, her breath ragged. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but where? She had no path, no home, no one to call her own. A soft voice drifted through the trees. "Zubaida." She spun around. The voice was unmistakable, her mother's. "Zubaida, my child, come home." Her eyes widened. Through the trees, she saw it, Nyandala, bathed in golden firelight. The village stood as it always had, untouched by storms or fear. And there, at the entrance, stood Naima, arms outstretched. Zubaida took a step forward. Then another. A cold wind sliced through her skin, and for a brief moment, the illusion wavered. The village shimmered like a reflection on water. She stopped. Mama Osi's words echoed in her mind, "The spirits will test you. If you follow the voices of your heart without wisdom, you will be lost." Tears streamed down her face. "You're not real," she whispered. The illusion flickered, then shattered. In its place stood the gnarled roots of a massive tree. The whispers in the forest turned to laughter, low, knowing, as if the spirits were amused by her struggle. Zubaida sank to her knees, her body trembling. Exhaustion weighed on her like a stone. She had nothing left. She crawled toward the sound of running water and found herself at the edge of a river, its surface silver under the faint starlight. With a final, shuddering breath, she let herself collapse. If the forest wished to claim her, she no longer had the strength to fight. Zubaida awoke to the scent of burning herbs and the sound of a crackling fire. Her body ached, and her throat felt dry as sand. As she blinked away the blur from her eyes, the first thing she saw was a hunched figure sitting beside the fire. The woman was ancient, her skin wrinkled like tree bark, her eyes milky yet piercing. She stirred a wooden bowl filled with a thick, steaming liquid, humming a melody that sent a shiver down Zubaida's spine. "You live," the woman murmured, not looking up. Good. I did not waste my time. Zubaida tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in her ribs forced her to groan. Rest, child. The forest nearly took you. Who are you? Zubaida's voice was barely a whisper. The woman finally turned to her, and in the flickering firelight, Zubaida saw something strange. Her irises shimmered like gold. I am Bibi Nuru, she said. I walk between the worlds of the living and the unseen. Zubaida swallowed hard. The name sounded familiar, spoken in hushed tones among the elders. Some said Bibi Nuru had been alive for generations, appearing only when the spirits willed it. Why did you save me? Bibi Nuru chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. Because you were not meant to die here. She reached into a woven basket and pulled out a gourd, offering it to Zubaida. Drink. Zubaida hesitated, but thirst won over fear. She took a sip and coughed as the bitter liquid burned her throat. Your blood is marked by the spirits, Bibi continued. You are not an ordinary child. Zubaida looked away. I am cursed. Bibi clicked her tongue. Cursed? Foolish words. You have power, girl. The forest speaks to you, though you do not yet understand its language. Zubaida frowned. The forest tried to kill me. The forest tested you, Bibi corrected. And you survived. The next few days blurred into strange lessons. Zubaida was weak, but Bibi forced her to rise, to walk, to learn. She taught her which plants healed and which ones poisoned, how to read the wind's whispers, how to hear the heartbeat of the earth beneath her feet. At night, Zubaida dreamed of shadows with glowing eyes, of voices calling her name from beyond the trees. Bibi explained that these were not mere dreams, they were visions, signs of her connection to the unseen. You are tied to the world of spirits and men, Bibi told her. Few are born with such a gift. Fewer still survive it. Zubaida did not know if she believed in gifts. But when she stretched out her hand and felt the pulse of life in a dying flower, when the wind shifted at the sound of her voice, she began to wonder if Bibi was right. She encountered creatures unlike any she had seen before, small, shadowy beings with eyes like fireflies that watched her from the trees, a serpent made of mist that coiled around her wrist before vanishing. Some creatures tested her, forcing her to prove her strength. Others followed her like silent protectors. Over time, fear gave way to understanding. The forest, once a place of nightmares, became familiar. The rustling of leaves no longer sounded like whispers of doom but the murmurs of an ancient song. One evening, as the fire crackled between them, Bibi spoke words that made Zubaida's stomach tighten. You must return. Zubaida stiffened. To Nyandala? Bibi nodded. Your fate is not to remain hidden in these trees. The spirits have chosen you for something greater. Zubaida clenched her fists. They cast me out. They left me to die. Bibi's golden eyes softened. Perhaps. But the wind shifts, child. And destiny does not forget. Zubaida looked into the flames, the heat warming her face, but inside, she felt cold. Return? She did not know if she was ready. The dense jungle seemed endless, the towering trees whispering secrets as Zubaida moved cautiously through the thick undergrowth. She had learned to navigate the land as if it were an extension of herself, but today, something felt different. The air was charged with a strange energy, and the wind carried unfamiliar scents, stone, fire, and something ancient. Then, she saw it. Beyond the trees, nestled in the heart of the valley, was a city unlike anything she had imagined. Tall stone structures, covered in vines yet standing strong, glowed under the golden light of the sun. Waterfalls cascaded from the cliffs, feeding into a crystal-clear river that ran through the city's center. People walked the streets, dressed in intricate garments of deep blues and rich golds, their faces calm yet powerful. This was the hidden kingdom, the place spoken of in whispers, dismissed as legend. And yet, here it was, alive. Before she could move closer, she felt eyes upon her. A group of warriors emerged, their spears gleaming, their faces unreadable. One of them, an older man with a commanding presence, stepped forward. His gaze locked onto her, and his eyes widened in recognition. "The mark of the blood moon," he murmured. Zubaida tensed as the warriors exchanged glances. But then, to her shock, they lowered their weapons. "You have returned," the man said, his voice filled with something that almost sounded like reverence. I don't understand," Zubaida stammered. "You will," he assured her. "The king has been expecting you." She was led through the city, her senses overwhelmed by the beauty surrounding her. The people whispered as she passed, some bowing their heads in quiet respect. She did not know why, but something in her blood stirred, as if this place was a part of her. At the palace, she was brought before King Omari, a regal man whose presence commanded both fear and admiration. His dark eyes studied her intently before he finally spoke. "You are one of us," he said. Zubaida's breath caught. "What?" "The blood that runs through you is not only of Nyandala. You descend from an ancient line, the keepers of balance. The ones who walk between the mortal and spirit realms." She felt the weight of his words settle into her bones. All her life, she had been feared, rejected. But here, she was recognized. Over the following weeks, she trained under the kingdom's finest warriors, learning not only the art of combat but also the wisdom of their ancestors. She deepened her connection to the unseen world, understanding the forces that had always called to her. But knowledge came with responsibility. One night, the kingdom's elders gathered around the sacred fire and revealed the full prophecy. "There will come a time of great darkness," the eldest among them warned. "A child born under the blood moon will hold the power to either bring salvation or destruction." Zubaida's hands trembled. "In Nyandala, a tyrant has risen. He rules with cruelty, bleeding the land dry. The balance is breaking." Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. She had been sent away from Nyandala, cast out as a curse. But now, fate was calling her back. And she had to decide, would she stay safe in the hidden kingdom, or return to face the destiny she had tried to escape? The journey back to Nyandala was filled with uncertainty, but Zubaida knew there was no turning back. The closer she got to the village, the more she saw the devastation that had unfolded in her absence. Fields once rich with crops were now barren, homes were in disrepair, and the air smelled of smoke and despair. The people who had once feared her now suffered under the rule of a tyrant far worse than any curse they had imagined. Chief Bakar had taken control, ruling with brutality and greed. Those who opposed him were either enslaved or executed. The elders who once guided the village were nowhere to be found, and whispers of rebellion had been silenced by fear. As Zubaida moved through the village under the cover of night, she came across a small group of women huddled around a fire. Among them was a face she had not seen in years, her mother, Naima. The woman who had once hesitated to love her now looked frail, her eyes filled with sorrow. When their gazes met, Naima gasped, covering her mouth as tears welled up. "My child," she whispered. Zubaida wanted to run to her, to embrace her, but she held herself back. "You abandoned me," she said, her voice trembling. Naima fell to her knees, shaking. "I was afraid. I was weak. I believed what they said, but I was wrong." Her voice cracked. "I have suffered every day since." Zubaida could hear the regret in her voice, but the wounds of the past were not so easily healed. Before she could say another word, a loud voice echoed through the village. "Who dares trespass in my land?" Chief Bakar stood atop the steps of the great hall, his heavy robes adorned with stolen gold, his presence radiating arrogance. Warriors surrounded him, their weapons gleaming under the moonlight. He smirked as he looked down at Zubaida. "So, the cursed girl returns," he sneered. "What? Have you come to beg for mercy?" Zubaida stepped forward, her chin high. "I have come to take back what you have stolen." The crowd stirred. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Many had given up hope, but seeing her now, strong, unafraid, awakened something long buried. Bakar laughed. "And what do you think you can do?" Zubaida took a deep breath, feeling the energy around her shift. the spirits whispered in the wind. The ground beneath her feet pulsed with life. She raised her hand, and the air crackled. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the village, snuffing out torches and sending dust swirling. The people gasped. Bakar's smirk faded. "Seize her," he roared. His warriors lunged. Zubaida closed her eyes and let go. Thunder rumbled, and the sky darkened. The earth trembled beneath them as roots sprang from the ground, ensnaring the soldiers. A great wave rose from the river, crashing into the battlefield, washing away their fearsome charge. The villagers, watching in awe, realized the truth: Zubaida was not a curse. She was their salvation. One by one, they picked up whatever they could, farming tools, broken spears, stones, and stood beside her. Bakar's confidence wavered as he saw the tide turning. He reached for his sword, but the ground beneath him cracked, and he stumbled. Zubaida stepped closer, her voice steady. "Your reign ends tonight." The battle had begun. As the battle raged on, Zubaida could feel the weight of destiny pressing upon her. The villagers, once afraid to even speak her name, now stood beside her, fighting to reclaim their home. But Chief Bakar was not one to surrender easily. With his warriors scattered and his power slipping, he turned to something far more sinister: dark magic. Disappearing into the shadows, Bakar entered the sacred shrine at the heart of the village. The air grew heavy with an unnatural energy as he knelt before a forbidden altar, whispering incantations in a tongue long forgotten. The ground quivered, and from the darkness, a monstrous force emerged, a spirit bound by hatred, its form shifting like smoke, its eyes burning with malice. Zubaida sensed the disturbance immediately. The spirits of the land trembled in warning, and she knew that the battle was far from over. As she stepped forward, Bakar re-emerged, his body shrouded in an eerie glow. His voice was deeper, unnatural. "You think you have won?" he spat, his eyes gleaming. "I am beyond mortal limits now." With a wave of his hand, a shadowy force lashed out, knocking several villagers to the ground. The people gasped in horror as Bakar lifted his arms, the wind howling around him. He was no longer just a tyrant, he had become something else entirely. Zubaida steadied herself, calling upon the spirits that had guided her for so long. The earth responded, roots and vines surging forth to block Bakar's attack. The sky roared with thunder as the elements bent to her will. Their final confrontation had begun. Blow after blow, they clashed, light against darkness, fate against defiance. Every strike Bakar unleashed was fueled by rage and desperation, while Zubaida moved with purpose, not letting anger consume her. The spirits watched in silence. This was the moment of decision. As Bakar lunged for one final strike, Zubaida saw the truth: not a mighty ruler, but a man consumed by fear. He had taken power not out of strength, but out of weakness, always afraid of losing control. In that instant, she understood the prophecy. She was not meant to destroy, but to restore. Instead of delivering a fatal blow, she raised her hands and spoke words of power. The spirits responded, unraveling the dark magic that surrounded Bakar. The energy drained from his body, his stolen strength dissipating into the wind. He fell to his knees, gasping, now just a man. The village was silent, waiting. Zubaida turned to the people. "It is not my place to take his life," she declared. "Nyandala must decide his fate." The crowd murmured, then voices rose in unison. They would no longer live in fear. Bakar would be exiled, stripped of his power, left to wander alone as he had once done to others. As the villagers made their decision, the sky above shifted. The blood moon rose once more, casting its crimson glow upon the land. But this time, it was not a symbol of fear, it was a sign of renewal. Zubaida stood among her people, no longer an outcast, but a protector. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Not through destruction, but through wisdom. And so, under the light of the blood moon, a new era began. With Chief Bakar exiled and the village freed from his cruelty, the people of Nyandala turned to Zubaida, not as a cursed child, but as their protector and leader. She had been cast away, yet she had returned stronger than ever, not to seek revenge, but to restore what had been lost. The days that followed were filled with healing. The once barren fields slowly flourished again as Zubaida guided the people in restoring their farmlands. The river, once tainted by neglect, ran clear under her watchful eye. Houses that had crumbled under tyranny were rebuilt with the hands of those who had once feared her. Now, they saw her for what she truly was, a guardian chosen by fate, not a bringer of doom. Despite all she had done, Zubaida remained humble. She spent her days walking among the people, ensuring no one went hungry, that no child felt abandoned as she once had. The spirits of the land whispered their approval, the wind carrying their voices as a gentle reminder that she was never truly alone. Her mother, Naima, now frail but filled with remorse, approached her one evening as the sun set over the village. "I should have fought for you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I let fear take hold of me, and for that, I will never forgive myself." Zubaida took her mother's hands and smiled softly. "The past is gone, but today, we have the power to change tomorrow." She embraced her, letting go of the pain she had carried for so long. The elders of the Hidden Kingdom visited Nyandala, bowing before her with respect. "The prophecy has been fulfilled," King Omari said. "You have chosen the path of balance, not destruction. Your name will be remembered for all time." Stories of Zubaida spread beyond Nyandala, reaching distant villages. Some came seeking her wisdom, others simply to witness the girl who had been born under the blood moon and had defied her fate. Songs were sung, tales were told, and her legend took root in the hearts of the people. As the years passed, Nyandala thrived under her guidance. But Zubaida knew her journey was far from over. There were still places where darkness lingered, where people suffered under unjust rulers. One night, as she stood beneath the blood moon once more, the spirits spoke to her. "A protector does not stay in one place," they whispered. "There are others who need you." She understood. Zubaida would not simply be a legend told around fires, she would be a force that shaped the world. With her people standing behind her, the spirits guiding her steps, and the light of the blood moon watching over her, she stepped forward into the unknown. And so, the legend of the child born under a blood moon lived on, not as a warning of fear, but as a story of resilience, destiny, and the power of choosing one's own path.